Thank you, Tim, for being here today. Welcome to SEVA VentRounds. Today is January 27, 2026, and we're going to be talking a little bit about plateau pressure and how technique matters. Today, the key items for you to recognize is that we have no endorsement of any mode, ventilator, or manufacturer. Whatever we say, it's our opinion. It does not represent the Cleveland Clinic. My conflicts of interest are there, and also Rob's chatburs. And today, Anika Nair is going to be helping us moderate our event. So, Anika, welcome to the team. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
All right. Just for everybody, remember this is a recorded session, so just keep your microphone muted. However, if you want to comment, please unmute or use the chat function. Both are welcome for us. There is CME and CRCE credits for everybody that is listening and completes the activities. Just remember for those RTs that you have to complete it within an hour, and then you get your high quality stuff. Okay, so the first item for you to be just aware is a key SEVA knowledge is the fact of us measuring the plateau pressure. And the plateau pressure for us means that there was an end inspiratory hold during inspiration that allows the pressure, the resistive component, and this is in volume control, the resistive component to be eliminated, and then measure the pressure inside the alveoli, essentially. And so that's the benefit of doing such a thing, is doing this pause allows you to measure the pressure inside the alveolar cavity. And so in general terms, here you have another patient that was on volume control, and you can see the pause occurring. And a question that occurs often for the team members is, where should we measure? And and I would ask right now to the team, where should you measure this? What numbers would you choose to measure? If you want to put it on the chat, unmute yourself and say, so I have 0.5 seconds after flow reaches 0. So 0.5 after flow reaches 0, not from starting. Anybody else? Right. So either there's a lot of doubt or everybody agrees with Ariel and his answer. Very good. All righty. Well, so in general terms, Ariel is right. It all depends what you are measuring. So if you're measuring for what the alveoli is seeing, 0.5 seconds, less than 0.5 seconds, is a unified mark that will allow you to see what is the plateau or the stress that the alveoli are seeing. As time goes by, there's a couple of things that occur. The volume that you delivered redistributes, so there's some pendulum that can occur, as well as the presence of stress relaxation. So as you keep something distended, it starts relaxing the structure, and so that may cause underestimation of what actually the alveoli is seeing. So at least on our courses, we teach that they should measure at 0.5 seconds or less to avoid that stress relaxation pendulum, which can drop the plateau from it. It's a source of high controversy out there and a lot of variability. And I would highlight that sometimes doing that measurement and looking at the time from where you started to where you end is challenging, to say the least. and not uniform in all ventilators as we practice. So some people tend to program a plateau pause at the time that they do the measurement, and that helps to do the measurement appropriately. So those are items that are out there for you to consider. So we're gonna go to our first one, and Anika, are you ready? All righty. So here's the part where you guys jump in and let us know. So.
All righty. So we have our screenshot here. So what is the tag?
And what ventilator is this?
Me? Oh,
yes.
This is a Hamilton. This is a Hamilton for anyone who is using their Hamilton C6 for anyone who's using their apps. This is SCMV on a Hamilton C6. Okay. So we have some answers coming in. This is VCCMVS. Anyone has any other thoughts? Everyone agrees with this, that this is VCCMVS? Okay, thank you. All right, so everyone's seeing that this is volume control, and is this with a descending flow waveform or a constant flow? Partial RAM. So not a constant flow, this is a descending flow. Okay. Alrighty. So what is the load? What is the load in inspiration? Okay. So we have increased resistance and we have PMUS. Any tiebreakers? Okay. Anyone else for what is the load in inspiration? Increased resistance, maybe. Okay. All right. So if we look at the waveform, Eduardo, if you could do the honor of drawing what the ideal waveform would look like. So there'll be two peaks, and the initial peak is more reflective. The pressure waveform, yeah. The initial peak is more reflective of your resistive load, and then the second peak is more reflective of your elastic load. So in this case, we would see that the initial peak is higher, and that's why we're saying that this is a resistive load. Yes.
So yeah, the flow is much higher at the beginning, so your resistive load will be higher, and so that's this behavior. Even though the flow doesn't reach zero, the drop down is telling you that there is a high resistive load, and it may be that we're giving it very fast, right? The flow that is going very fast, or it may be that the resistive load is high. But yeah, I absolutely agree with that, Anika. Great job.
Okay, and then if there was PMUS, because we have two answers for PMUS. If there was PMUS, what would the pressure waveform look like if there was inspiratory PMUS?
Well, that's a great question. So I mean, one could argue that if this was like this, that this could be PMOS, that scooping down would be PMOS. However, I mean, at least on this, there's other features that don't show PMOS otherwise, right, Anika?
Yes. So if we look at who's triggering the breath, the first one, who triggered the breath? Was it time or was it the patient? Time, yeah. And then is there any other evidence of PMUS anywhere else that we see? No PMUS during expiration also. Yes. I think those were my signs that there was no PMUS. Eduardo, anything else?
No, I
or
agree.
The lack of PMUS?
I agree. I mean, it's always challenging when you just have one to know if there was just a brief PMOS during that period of time. And I always tend to look then at the expiratory part, and the expiratory part may give you clues of if it's consistent or not. So do you want to take a look at that?
Yes. So now let's talk about the expiratory load. What is the load in expiration? Resistive. Yes. Right. Yes. So resistive load in expiration. And why is that? What are some signs that tell us that there is expiratory resistance?
And I'm gonna make it bigger. Yeah, you're absolutely. So
Yes, takes so long to get back to baseline. Yes, so long time constant there, where it's taking a while to come back to baseline there on the flow waveform. What else?
I think that those are great thoughts for that. So it just takes a long period of time. Actually, I wanted to highlight something that people may really like is the I to E ratio. It's 1 to 12. 1 to 12. And so it took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds, and there was still flow coming out of that lung. Isn't that impressive?
Yeah.
All
And then
yours.
Rob said small peak expiratory flow shows high resistance.
Welcome, Rob.
And we have our flow waveform also going below zero over there, again, pointing towards high resistance and air trapping. Okay, so is everyone convinced that this is resistance in inspiration and expiration? Any other thoughts there? And then we kind of touched on this. Is there any PV discordance? So now, does anyone have anything to say in terms of PV discordance, or is this a passive human? PMAS is out of the equation. Passive. Okay. Yes. All right. Thank you. Okay, so this is a passive person. Okay, so now what maneuver have we tried to do over here? Okay. There's an inspiratory hold, yes, inspiratory pause, inspiratory hold to measure Pplat. So that's what we're doing, and we're holding the pause. Does anyone have any thoughts about this? The two screens that Eduardo is toggling in between. Anything in this inspiratory pause that's standing out as maybe weird or not normal? He's toggling between the two screens. The cursor is where the pressure, like that's where we're measuring the pressure. So over here in this slide, there is a pressure of 28 or 29. And then in the next slide that he toggles on, there's a pressure of 34. Who has thoughts about this? We can type it out or unmute and say just something different is happening here. So does anyone have any thoughts about that? The real driving pressure is very small. What do you mean by that?
So I think what Ariel is saying is that the difference between the plateau pressure and the total PEEP is low. That's what he's referring. Although we have not done that maneuver yet to measure.
We haven't done total PEEP yet. Yes. Okay. Does anyone have any theories about why the end of this inspiratory hold is higher than the beginning of this inspiratory hold?
So there's one theory there.
Rob
There's a
says
couple of theories. So shoot your theories.
yes.
So we have volume entering the system. So perhaps, I don't know if Rob, do you want to explain how volume can enter the system, Rob?
Oh yeah, I forgot that I have a microphone. But you can see that volume is entering the system from the volume waveform, right? Right where the pressure starts to rise, you get a positive increase in volume.
No, it's the same.
No, look, it goes from the volume wave. Oh, that's PCO2. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong
Yes.
damn thing. It could, but in order for pressure to rise in the system, there has to be volume entering where the pressure is being recorded. Now, I can't think of any external source unless it was like an aerosol, but that would be more radical. So what if, because this patient has huge airway resistance, when you hold open the, when you institute a plateau pressure, you're holding the lungs open, there might be some collapsed airways that start opening and emptying into the space where the pressure is being measured.
So how would we prove that, Rob?
I don't know.
So there's
And
there's three theories. I want just to highlight this. So Anika, do you want to summarize? There's three theories that we have heard so far, right?
Yeah. So there's three. There's volume entering the system, which we just talked about. Then there's expiratory PMUS, which is possible, probably one of the more common reasons to see this, but then there's no evidence of PMUS anywhere. When we looked at the waveform before and even like as we're toggling through it, there's no evidence of PMUS. And then the third one is increased air trapping. So here I'll punt it back to you, Eduardo, to explain that last one.
So what Rob said, well, you close the valves, so maybe there was some air trapping elsewhere, and what we're seeing is the pressure, the alveolar pressure. So essentially, when you do an end inspiratory pause, right, you close the valves and you wait and equalize the pressures and allow the flow to continue to come out, and then you see what's occurring. That's how we measure the auto PEEP, correct, Rob?
Yep.
Yep. So if I do an auto PEEP, so if I do a plateau end inspiratory pause, then I would expect to see an airway pressure that would be close to this number, if true. And so we did that, and I had never seen this, by the way. So you can see the end expiratory pause that occurs on this patient. The flow continues to, obviously we close the valves. Flow continues to come out from those low time constant areas. And as they come out, the pressure starts come up. And the pressure here is 32, pretty darn close to the 34 that we had on the other one. So I think because, and Anika was saying this to me, is that because we went medieval with the end inspiratory hold button, and we kept it go the length, that we captured auto PEEP on the plateau pressure as a cause for an increase on the plateau pressure. Does that sound feasible to you, Rob?
I'd have to think about that.
Because
first of all, by definition, auto PEEP can only happen at end expiration. Auto PEEP isn't something that happens during end inspiration.
But there's air trapping throughout, right?
No, air trapping is defined as the void that remains in the lungs when the next breath starts, when the flow crosses from negative to positive. That's what the definition of air trapping is. Now, it has an effect on other pressures. The higher the auto PEEP, the higher the plateau pressure. It's 1-to-1, more or less.
Yeah. So That's the only explanation that I can find for this, that there is that because we went so long, those areas that have a prolonged time constant are allowing us to empty, and then the pressure went up. So we have to think about that, but that's essentially what you were saying about a potential etiology for this. So I don't know.
Yeah, but then I just thought of another thing. If there was airways that were opening, that were collapsed during inspiration, and then during the inspiratory hold they started to open up, then
Yep.
that would increase the compliance of the system, and the pressure would tend to go down.
Unless those areas are filled and there's air coming out.
Oh yeah, let's just pressure build up in them.
Yeah. So it's
I don't know. This is a complicated case. This is, you can't think about this as a single compartment model and get an answer,
No.
right? And the equation of motion is a single compartment model. So we're stretching our mental model to explain what's going on here.
That's correct. That's correct. So I think that there's a couple of messages here to talk about. The first one is, where do we measure the plateau pause in general, and how there's things that can modify your plateau pause. So now we have talked about 3 common causes of in a paralyzed patient. One of them we're not entirely sure, but I cannot find any other better reason for it, but we will come back to that, which is the patient doing effort, expiratory effort, A. B, adding volume to the system. C, auto PEEP that manifests because we did a pause too long. But I wanted to show this image, and this is from Ariel, and thank you, Ariel, for sharing this. Whenever we do a plateau pause, there's things that can affect it. And obviously, this is not an image that shows a plateau pause, but it does show in pressure control 3 variable items that are occurring. In the first one, you can see the pressure go down. So the patient is doing an inspiratory effort, very large inspiratory effort. And at the end of the breath, and the flow goes up. The flow goes up, and I'll shade the flow going up, which tells us that the patient is doing inspiratory effort. And you can see all that going there, and that's flow, and that's why the pressure goes down. And then the breath ends, and the PMOS continued from here to here, and then the patient exhales. On the next one, on the next breath, the patient does inspiratory effort, and this inspiratory effort is beautiful. It triggers the breath. It triggers the breath. So this is an early trigger. This is a normally triggered breath. And then you can see that the waveform is not square as it should, because ventilators are bad at controlling pressure, or mediocre. But then the flow ends, because this is pressure control. The I time is set. So the PMOS went from here to here. Okay. And now you see the pressure go up. The pressure go up as the patient relaxes. The pressure goes up, and we know that the patient is relaxing because there's no evidence of PMOS, of expiratory PMOS afterwards. So the system relaxes and the pressure goes up. And the third breath is a passive breath. There is no PMOS, no PMOS. And in that case, you can see no aberrancy there. It's a set pressure. Rob, do you agree with those?
Yeah, those are great. It's beautiful. 3 different breaths that show 3 different things all in a row.
And the beauty about it is that you can also see how the tidal volume changed with the PMOS. So the first one is an early trigger. You can see the volume went up. You here don't have a rise on the pressure. On the other one, this is actually a late cycle. And you can see the pressure going up because of relaxation, not because of effort. The last one, a passive, beautiful exponential decay. And you can see that this would be the tidal volume that the patient would have received if it was passive. So anything above this is tidal volume that the patient got because of PMOS as a manifestation of work. And yes, I agree with you, Ariel. This image shows the variability that can occur just on these 3 images. You have 3 different waveforms these three different discordances with the different management activities for them. Very good.
And just to point out, the exact same patient actions would give you different waveforms on a different ventilator, like a Draeger.
Yeah.
A Draeger allows the patient to actively exhale if they relax during the inspiratory time. So the pressure wouldn't go up, the flow would go below baseline a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great, I love that comment, Rob. So for some of you that may expect to see late cycle as a rise in pressure on the ventilator during pressure controlled breaths, you may not see that. And that may be because of the algorithm that the ventilator has, because it all depends how the engineers see this happening, right? If the engineer sees as a more important thing to maintain the pressure, it will let the patient exhale. If we see that it's better to maintain the tidal volume and not inhaled, and actually this leads to a series of other issues of how do you measure what's the tidal volume and whatnot, but we're not going to get into that right now. So I'm showing this because here comes the quiz. Are you ready for this? So one of the myths of mechanical ventilation is that you cannot measure a plateau pressure during pressure control. Have you heard this, Anika? Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Common statement, right? That you so which would say technically that if you are on a pressure control mode, that you would not be able to measure driving pressure, or you would not be able to measure a plateau pressure on those patients. That's the statement. And so in other practices, and perhaps you have heard this, Rob, people have to switch to volume control to do these maneuvers. Have you heard about this?
Oh yeah, that's been common throughout my entire history in the profession.
Yeah. So let's examine this global statement about pressure control or pressure support, that you can't measure a plateau. So, and we do recognize, I will put that there, that there's some ventilators that will not allow you on a spontaneous breath to measure a plateau. That's a true statement, right?
Yep.
Puritan,
Anika,
no, the
comments?
Puritan Bennett doesn't let you measure if there's any effort. So
That's perfect. All righty. So I'm going to put a case, and what I want you to do is, as a group, we want you to tell us, what do you think is going to happen to the plateau? Is it going to stay? Is it going to go up, stays the same as the pressure set by the ventilator, or it goes down? So let me show the next image. And so in this patient in particular, so there's three potential options. If we do a end inspiratory hold, the pressure can go up, stay the same, or come down. So A, B, or C. Put your answers there. So A, B, or C for this patient in particular on pressure control. Right, we're starting to see some answers come in. All right. Very good. So there's a unifying statement for C. Anybody wants to explain why C? Why would the pressure go down? That's what the team is saying, that the pressure would go down. And just for the sake of it, you are absolutely correct. The pressure went down. You can see the inspiratory hold here, and it lasts from here to here, and you can see that the pressure went down. So any reason why that occurred? Yeah, good point. So the flow, as long as there is flow, that means that the pressure in the airway is higher than the pressure in the alveoli. Because there cannot be flow if the pressures in between the alveoli and the airway are the same. Rob?
Yeah, so the other half of what Ariel is saying is that alveolar pressure starts at PEEP and rises to the plateau or to the inspiratory target pressure, and they'll match the inspiratory target pressure when flow is 0 for a passive patient. So that's why it's going from low to high. It doesn't get as high as the plateau pressure because it didn't have time to do it. Another completely different way to think about this is that the target pressure you set in pressure control is the pressure that is required to deliver a tidal volume for a passive patient. You can't deliver the tidal volume until the flow goes to 0. So the pressure in the alveolar region is just the elastance times the tidal volume. So if the tidal volume is less than it should be, then that elastic pressure, the elastic load is less than it should be. All different ways of interpreting the equation of motion says the same thing.
I love it. Thank you, Rob. And I will highlight, I drew here the alveolar pressure just for your viewing pressure. And actually, just recognizing that this patient may have auto PEEP, it would start up there and then get to there. If the patient had a longer inspiratory time, then you would have continued to see this until it reached essentially the top, and the flow would have reached 0 over here. Now, clinically, it's common for us not to set the inspiratory time all the way to 0, and this is classic for patients with high inspiratory resistance, in which you would require a very long inspiratory time to inflate that lung, and so that's not practical, and so we don't do that. Very good. Excellent. So that you passed number 1. So here is a patient. This one is in volume control. Will the pressure stay go up, stay the same, or go down? A, B, or C?
You mean the plateau pressure?
The plateau pressure, sorry. Thank you. Have no fear. Put your option. Good. All righty. So people are starting to put in their order. So now remember, this is what mode is it? This is volume control, right, Anika?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So I have a fair amount of answers so far. So let's take a look at this. Okay. So is there any PMOS here? Any evidence of effort? No. Very good. So let's take a look at the answer. So in this case, the important here is to recognize that you have the resistive load, and then the resistive load in volume control, it would cause a pause. So there's with the pause, you're going to see a drop from the peak to the plateau pressure, and unless there is essentially no resistance, which you see here, so there is a resistive load. So you see this little step up. This step up should be exactly the same as this one. This step up should be exactly the same as this one. If they are different, that means that there's an issue with the airway opening pressure. But if these should always be the same. If they are not the same, there's an issue there. Rob, comments?
No, that's good. Go ahead and continue. And when you're done, I have another comment.
Okay. So here's another one. Now this is the same patient, okay, but it was changed to pressure control because the patient started doing something. So now that you have this patient, what do you think is going to happen to the pressure? Up, the same, or down? And I'll draw a little bit graph here so that you can get an idea of what's going on, and then just highlight a little bit. maybe that will help you see. So whenever I do these graphs, I love to see how would it look normally. And sometimes the flow sensor may not help us much. I mean, sometimes it doesn't show, but I looked for other things, like in this case, you see the amputation of the peak. You see that? Ariel, go ahead.
Yeah, Eduardo, what I want to remark is like sometimes the exponential decay could be a little different than the exponential you draw in some circumstances, especially when error resistance is increased. Even though it has an exponential decay, it could look slightly different.
That's absolutely true. And also if there's other issues going on with, so we take this with a grain of sand, but it's good to have what the normal looks and what it doesn't, right? And so if I show you what you see here, I mean, what I would have expected is, because the flow didn't reach zero, is that the pressure would go down, as you see there, right? It went down. But I think that this patient may have been having some degree of early trigger, and so there was some degree of PMOS, and you can see that this is essentially at the same level as the ventilator after we did the pause. So there's some degree of PMOS. I would have expected this to have been like this. So I don't know if this is expiratory PMOS or just simply some of the tidal volume that went in with effort. I'm going to show you another one. So now that I have showed you that this is the same patient, now it's in a different mode, but it's pressure control. So there's pressure control. What do you think is going to happen if we do an inspiratory hold here? Will the pressure go up, stay the same, or go down? Yeah, lots of A's. So here's the plateau pause. And so this one is very nice because you can see the pressure that the ventilator is regulating. This is PC CMB-A. So the ventilator is trying to maintain the tidal volume at goal. And you see that it's barely doing it. But then we do the end inspiratory hold right here. And the pressure goes all the way up. And the measured level, actually, the plateau for this patient is 36. So it's putting in, even though the pressure is set down here at 5 centimeters of pressure support, or I mean very little, the patient is generating a fair amount of effort, and that's pressure that goes inside. Now, it could be also that the patient is breathing out against the ventilator, so that this is expiratory effort, right? So it can be a combination of both the patient exhaling actively and volume that the patient placed in. If the patient was not actively exhaling, and if this is a plateau, which we cannot see here, so if this is going like that, then that means that the patient is doing expiratory muscle activity. But if it's flat, then the difference between this pressure here and this one over here, it's called the pressure muscle index. Pressure muscle index. And a number that is higher than 6 tells you that there's a lot of work shifting, so under assistance. And then if there is less than 0 or close to 0, then there's over assistance. Rob, comments?
No, I think you covered it all quite well.
And so here's a last one. And again, this is the same patient, but now on pressure support. And I'll put again the graph. You can see that the breaths are triggered by the patient. This is all work of the patient. So what do you think is going to happen? Up or down? Yeah. So now you can see the patient is doing effort, and this PMI shows you that the pressure above this one is X number. I think that this is 20, the number over here. So it's around 5. And so that's a PMI, a pressure muscle index less than 6, between 6 and 0, which may be appropriate amount of work of breathing. This is an alternative to doing a POC, or one of the other measurements that you can do to look at POC. So in general, I'm just demonstrating this is a spontaneous mode in which you did a pause, and you got this to measure the amount of effort that the patient is generating. And it showed you one that was very high, that it could be because the patient is doing expiratory effort, as you can see over here, or because of a very high inspiratory effort. Showed you one in which there's a little bit of effort, and it compensates. And then on volume control. Rob, all yours.
This just illustrates why I think about the plateau pressure effects in terms of the volume delivered, because the equation of motion says that the plateau pressure is elastance times the tidal volume plus the total PEEP. If you're in pressure control and the flow goes to zero, then you have enough flow to deliver the tidal volume, and the plateau pressure will be the same as the set pressure. If you don't have enough flow to deliver the tidal volume, then the plateau pressure will be less than the set target pressure. And if the flow is excessive because of P must, then you get more tidal volume than a passive patient, and so the plateau pressure is higher than the set pressure.
I love
of course,
it.
there's
So,
different ways to think about that, but it unifies it when you think in terms of the actual tidal volume being delivered. So it's either higher than expected, same as expected, or less than expected for tidal volume. And those correspond to what happens to the plateau pressure, higher, the same, or lower.
very good.
Just the way I remember it.
Ariel, you have your hand up. All righty. Very good. Anika, any parting comments or thoughts?
No, covered it.
Very good. So I think I hope that this serves as an illustration of a couple of items. One, Pplat is can be done, volume control and pressure control, and it carries information about the system and the interactions with the patient. Standardizing how you do it and knowing how your ventilator does it is highly relevant. And just pressing the button and looking at the number on the screen is not necessarily the best way to do that.
Eduardo, one last question. So what do you recommend us to do at bedside?
Yeah. So in practice, when you're measuring the Pplat, I think best practice is to, from my standpoint, if you're just going to do one single measurement about the say you're doing a vent check, is you should do a pause and record it, and then move the cursor to the point where you have no evidence of PMOS, and you have the timing as close as possible as you can to 0.5 seconds. Ariel, that would be the recommendation that we have for our practice over here. I think that the second, if you're going to be doing a PEEP titration, for example, or you're going to do a maneuver in which you're trying to follow the Pplat through time, that using the programmable button on for Pplat is much more useful, so that you can have a standardized reading for each one of them at the exact same time that you want to do it. Will there be error between the measurements? Yes, but they will move in the same direction. It should move in the same direction as you're moving the PEEP for PEEP titration or whatnot. That's what I would think that it's my recommendation. I don't know if you have dissenting thoughts, or Rob, Anika, any other recommendations?
No, I agree.
I agree with you, Eduardo. We need to record it, but a long inspiratory pause is always very useful to detect any kind of leak in the system. Yeah. Still, the one at 0.5 seconds is the one that represents the maximal stress in the lungs.
I love that statement. Yeah, absolutely. If you do a pause and your pressure is starting to go down, actually that's a great manifestation that you're not controlling pressure at that point, right? You just blocked the inspiratory and expiratory, and you see what happens to the pressure. And if it's going down, that means that either you have a leak or the patient is sucking in, right? or there's distribution through the lung. The pendulum can also cause that fake drop. Very good. Oh, this is so good. All righty. If you want to learn more about this, join us for our SEVA Summit. All of this is recorded. This is out there in YouTube. I think this is episode 105. We want to thank you all for coming and being part of the webinar, and hope you have a great day. Thank you.